Well done, team. We've caught the bad guys, put them back in jail, and saved the city. I think that was a job well done. So what are we gonna do now? Oh, I don't know. You guys want to get pizza or something?
No, but we're superheroes. Shouldn't we be fighting someone?
Oh, I mean, there are no more bad guys left to fight it. Maybe nature will send something our way. I don't know. That might be interesting, right? Well, what's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 9, People Like Us. So it's kind of a seemingly build-up episode. Still don't really know what the second half of the season is going to be about. The only real possibility that I saw for maybe a future story in this one is whatever box that June and Al found while they were searching. Don't know what that would be. It seemed kind of like a helpful box, so I don't know how that would be a story of possible villains they'd be going up against. But who knows? We'll see where that goes. For now, it feels like at least the next episode, maybe the next couple, are going to be focused on this storm that is now just chucking walkers everywhere. Something is kind of interesting about that. Just the idea that you could be walking along and suddenly a walker comes flying at your face, or even just driving. Like we could see as Al and June are in the big truck that is built to withstand so much damage. Even that's getting rocked around by just the walkers slamming into it. So for instance, with John and Strand in a car, who knows if a walker gets thrown into that, it might get thrown straight through the windshield. But we are seeing everybody sort of paired off. June and Al, Strand and John, Morgan and Alicia, and then Luciana and Charlie. So we'll see where all these stories go. I feel like with Luciana and Charlie, that'll be the most, I wouldn't say interesting, but I'm curious to see how they're going to handle it. Because obviously for Luciana, Charlie killed the man she was in love with. There's going to be that frustration, but also she's a kid. They still haven't really talked about what happened there, why she shot him in the first place. So maybe we'll finally get that information. But for Morgan and Alicia, it feels like Morgan, he's talking about going back. Alicia seems to be probably what is going to keep him here, though, realizing that he can still help these people. Like, yes, he wants to go back. He wants to tell Rick that he was right. But ultimately, I think seeing Alicia, seeing what she's going through right now, and even seeing Strand and Luciana, I think he's going to realize he's still needed here. He is still needed as far as helping them find a way to move past everything that happened. So like I said, it feels kind of like a build-up episode in that regard, just because a lot of these stories feel like they are at the beginning of it all, but they're all fairly interesting stories. Even looking at Alicia, Luciana, and Strand, I am curious to see where their stories are going to go. Strand is probably the least interesting, because it just seems like he's getting drunk because he can. But they are all mourning in their own way. They're kind of that post-battle clarity, I suppose, realizing some of the awful stuff they did, seeking revenge for what happened. Also, we never really confirmed what happened to everybody that was in the baseball field, so I'm mainly because I know they were building up Strand and Cole. I'm curious to see if that's going to go anywhere, or if Cole is now dead. That story was built up and just went nowhere. But ultimately, not a whole lot to really talk about in this episode. There also wasn't any action scenes, so it's not like I can sit here and nitpick all of those issues that they tend to bring in whenever you have a bunch of walkers. Yeah, so this was mainly focused on the characters, and I kind of like what they're doing with them right now, which is kind of surprising because they've not done a good job with these characters in the past. So it feels like we're actually starting to see some growth. We are starting to see them maybe become better characters, and I like that. So we'll see what happens next. On to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 10, Close Your Eyes. Well, now I'm a little concerned that this is going to be the rest of the season, because the fact that we only focused on one story out of a possible 4, and now maybe 5, knowing that apparently Luciana and Morgan are not with either Alicia or Charlie like I thought they were. Now I'm a little worried that every episode of the next 3 or 4 is going to be focused on a different story about what was going on during this storm. And I'm not going to lie, it's a lot less interesting. Yes, surviving a storm in a zombie apocalypse, that's unique, something I've not seen done before, but I don't really feel like there's much you can do with that, though. Like, obviously, everybody's going to have their own separate stories. Like this one, it works. For what Alicia and Charlie are going through, it works for both of them. Alicia needs to come to grips with everything that's happened. Even though she has moved past some of the pain she's felt, there's still that lingering doubt because she doesn't feel like she can live up to what her mom was trying to do, because there's so much that she did in spite of all of that. There's still that resentment that she feels, and especially when she finds out she's in there with Charlie, there's even more of that resentment. Charlie, of course, dealing with the guilt of what she did, we still never really talk about why she shot Nick. Like, are we just ignoring that? Are we just saying, oh, she shot him because she was a part of the Vultures and that's it? I don't know. It feels really lazy to just skip over the fact that she shot him without any real provocation that we could tell. But ultimately, I think a lot of these scenes, they're properly intense. I didn't feel like either of them were going to die, but there is still kind of that uncertainty of what are they going to do with these characters? How is Alicia going to come past this? How is Charlie going to move past what she did? And there are several moments where I feel very realistic based on how somebody who's going through this level of guilt might feel and what they might do in those moments. I will say both of them doing pretty well with the acting. Not phenomenal, nothing spectacular, but they're both doing a solid job. They're carrying these scenes well and make you feel for them a bit. Ultimately, if there's one complaint that I do have, I mean, obviously there's a lot of happenstance that goes on in this episode. I mean, the fact that the one walker that's up on the tree just so happens to fall and break the chain leading into the basement where they're trapped and they're about to basically drown in there. Obviously, very, very unlikely. And also, we didn't really talk about what happened after they got out of the basement. I mean, the storm was still going on, and there were still walkers around. They shot the one in the head, and apparently that doesn't draw any walkers to them. Like, if banging on nails in the middle of a storm was enough to draw walkers to the house, why wasn't a gunshot suddenly able to draw walkers? But that, I mean, the storm's not over, so what do they do for the rest of the storm? You know, we cut to the end of it. They didn't have a house to stay in. If it were throwing walkers around, the winds would be strong enough to throw them around as well. So we're just supposed to assume that it was the end of the storm when they got out of there, and it ended shortly after that. They're not going to get sick from being rained on that whole time. There's just a lot about it that I feel like is sort of lazily put together. Also, the fact that they threw in the line, he saved us. Like, yes, the walker on the branch, he wanted the tree to fall so he could fall on top of the door. Like, that's exactly what happened. He's the one that did that. I don't know why that line there from her, it felt kind of silly, and I don't know if that was supposed to make Alicia go, oh, these are not just monsters, these were people, and these people can still help us apparently by happening to fall on top of doors that we need to get out of. I don't know, it felt kind of a weird line. Yeah, so there were some moments like that throughout, but the one thing that did bug me throughout this was Alicia. And a lot of it is just they're writing her not very likable. It ends on a decent note between her and Charlie. Like, her getting over the hatred and the resentment she felt is nice. But throughout most of the episode, she's just unbearable. To listen to her talk to Charlie, I know what Charlie did was awful. And again, there's a lot that we're kind of overlooking when it comes to her. But a lot of what Alicia says is just despicable. Even before Charlie goes and tries to get bit by the walker, I'm just sitting there thinking, she's got this gun. Everything Alicia is saying, like, was she trying to get her to end it all? Even with the reasoning that she had, I still felt like it was a little too over the top, and I think the writing just didn't really help her. And even at the end, after they reconcile, they have that moment when they find the bus flipped over, and she just has that moment of like, it's not going to get better. Things only get worse from here. Even that line, I feel like it was kind of a, look, things aren't always going to work out. We do have to be prepared for the worst type of speech. But it almost came off as like a, we don't have anything to look forward to. We don't have anything to hope for. Hope is meaningless. Not a great speech from her to give them the motivation to keep going. So we'll see what happens next. Like I said, I'm assuming that we're going to be following everybody else's stories throughout the storm. I don't know if this means Morgan and Luciana's stories might converge, since Luciana was going looking for Charlie. We don't know what happened to her. Morgan, I assumed he would come back after Alicia, but I guess maybe he doesn't. Maybe he, after this whole thing about wanting to be there for her and wanting to help her when he couldn't help Nick, maybe that's just going to be pushed to the wayside and he's just going to go off on his own and not do anything that he's been saying he's going to do this season, which would be really disappointing. There's just a lot about this that it was good at times, but when I look at the overall story, when I look at how everything's moving, there's a lot about it that feels like I don't see what the future holds. I don't see where a lot of these stories are going. And it feels like we could even backtrack on some of them. Like, one thing I was reminded of as I was watching this episode is something that June said in the last one, where she was talking about how she's the one that runs and leaves everybody behind. And all I could think is, we're not really going to go with this again, right? We're not going to go with this idea that she might run and leave John behind again. These stories tend to get a bit repetitive with Morgan. He wants to help Alicia, but then now all of a sudden he doesn't. He's just going to let her go with Alicia. She wants to live up to her mom's vision and not become this awful person, but then in this episode she is for most of it. I just hope that we're not going to see repeating of these stories. I don't want to see these characters regress, but it feels like there's a chance that they might. And if that's the case, it feels like a lazy way to have character growth, because the easiest way to do it is to take away the character growth you did before and have them go through it again. That's too simplistic. And sometimes people do need to relearn lessons, but especially not in the same season. It just feels like you don't have any ideas then. You don't really know what you're doing if you have to keep repeating these stories. With all that being said, though, those are my thoughts on these 2 episodes, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 2? Let me know. We could talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe, future Fear the Walking Dead reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here as well as some Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.